Welcome to All-Time Epic Stories. Today, we present Beyond Comfort, the Stoic Path to Strength Through Deliberate Discomfort. In the heart of ancient Rome, as dawn broke over marble columns and bustling streets, a young philosopher named Marcus prepared for a practice that would define his character. While others sought the warmth of their beds and the comfort of familiar routines, Marcus chose a different path, one of deliberate discomfort. He walked barefoot across cold stone floors, feeling every sensation, every chill, training his mind to accept rather than resist. This was not punishment, Marcus understood, but preparation, a way to strengthen the spirit through voluntary hardship. The Stoic philosophers had long taught that comfort, while pleasant, could become a gilded cage that weakened the soul. They believed that by deliberately exposing ourselves to discomfort, we build resilience like a blacksmith forges steel through fire. Marcus had studied the teachings of Epictetus, the former slave who became one of history's greatest philosophers. Epictetus taught that we do not control external events, but we absolutely control our responses to them. By practicing discomfort voluntarily, we prepare ourselves for the involuntary discomforts that life inevitably brings. On this particular morning, Marcus decided to practice what the Stoics called premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. He would spend the day as if he had lost everything, his wealth, his status, his possessions. He wore the simplest tunic, ate the plainest food, and sat on the hard ground rather than cushioned chairs. His friends thought him strange, asking why someone of means would choose to live like a pauper even for a day. But Marcus smiled, for he knew a secret they had not yet discovered, that freedom comes not from having everything, but from needing nothing. As the sun climbed higher, Marcus went to the public baths but chose the cold plunge instead of the heated pools. The shock of cold water hit his body like 1,000 needles, his breath catching, his muscles tensing involuntarily. But he remained, breathing slowly, consciously relaxing each muscle, teaching his body that discomfort need not mean distress. This practice, he knew, was building something invaluable, the ability to remain calm in the face of adversity. When he emerged, his skin tingling and alive, he felt not weakened but strengthened, more present and aware than before. Later that day, Marcus encountered a merchant complaining bitterly about a slight delay in his shipment of exotic spices. The man was consumed with frustration over such a minor inconvenience, his entire day ruined by something so trivial. Marcus observed quietly, recognizing what he had once been, a slave to comfort, disturbed by any deviation from ease. Through his practice of voluntary discomfort, he had broken those chains, learning that happiness could not depend on circumstances. He approached the merchant gently, sharing the wisdom that had transformed his own life. What if, Marcus suggested, we practiced being without the things we take for granted, so we might appreciate them more deeply? The merchant looked skeptical, but something in Marcus's calm presence made him pause and consider. That evening, Marcus sat with his teacher, an old philosopher named Gaius, discussing the day's experiences. Gaius nodded approvingly, explaining that the Stoics had always understood what modern comfort seekers often forget. A life of uninterrupted ease, he said, produces a spirit as fragile as glass, beautiful perhaps, but easily shattered. But a spirit tempered by voluntary hardship becomes like forged iron, strong, resilient, unbreakable. Gaius shared the story of Cato the Younger, who would walk bareheaded in scorching sun and freezing rain. People thought Cato mad, but he understood that comfort addiction was the real madness, leaving men weak and dependent. The philosopher Seneca would periodically live on water and cheap bread, sleeping on hard floors, training himself for potential poverty. He wrote that we should set aside certain days to practice poverty, asking ourselves, is this what I feared? Marcus absorbed these teachings, understanding that deliberate discomfort was not about suffering, but about freedom. The following week, Marcus began a new practice, rising before dawn to train his body in the cold morning air. He ran through the streets while others slept, his breath visible in cold air, his muscles burning with exertion. With each step, he reinforced the truth that he was capable of far more than his comfort zone suggested. He discovered that the voice warning him to stop, to rest, to seek comfort, was often lying about his true limits. One day, Marcus decided to fast, consuming only water from sunrise to sunset, observing his relationship with hunger. At first, his stomach protested loudly, his mind creating elaborate fantasies of food and demanding immediate satisfaction. But as hours passed, he noticed something remarkable: the hunger remained, but the suffering around it dissolved. He realized that suffering was not the sensation itself, but the story his mind told about that sensation. When he observed hunger without judgment, without the narrative that something was wrong, it became just another sensation. By sunset, when he finally ate a simple meal, each bite exploded with flavor he had never noticed before. The practice had not only built discipline, but had restored his appreciation for what he normally took for granted. News of Marcus's practices spread through Rome, and others began to seek his counsel on developing inner strength. A wealthy senator approached, confessing that despite his riches, he felt anxious and fragile, disturbed by small inconveniences. Marcus asked him a simple question: when was the last time you were truly uncomfortable by choice? The senator couldn't remember, admitting he avoided any discomfort, surrounding himself with every possible luxury and convenience. Marcus explained that by avoiding all discomfort, the senator had become its prisoner, his peace dependent on perfect external conditions. He invited the senator to join him the next morning for a cold bath and a day of simple living. Reluctantly but curiously, the senator agreed, appearing the next day dressed in his finest garments, entirely unprepared. Marcus provided him with a simple tunic and led him to the cold plunge, watching as the senator hesitated at the water's edge. Taking a deep breath, the senator stepped in, gasping at the shock, every instinct screaming to escape. But Marcus's calm presence and gentle encouragement helped him stay, breathing through the discomfort. Gradually, the senator's panic subsided, replaced by a strange exhilaration, a sense of being fully alive and present. When they emerged, the senator was laughing, amazed at himself, feeling stronger than he had in years. They spent the day eating simple food, sitting on hard benches, walking instead of being carried in litters. By evening, the senator confessed he felt paradoxically more satisfied than after any luxurious banquet. He had discovered what Marcus knew, that true satisfaction comes not from constant pleasure, but from earned peace. Over the following weeks, the senator continued the practice, gradually building a resilience he had never known. When a genuine hardship arrived, a political setback that once would have devastated him, he remained centered and calm. He recognized the challenge as just another form of discomfort, and he had trained for exactly this. Marcus watched with quiet satisfaction as his student became his own teacher, embodying the principles rather than just hearing them. Meanwhile, Marcus continued deepening his own practice, always finding new edges of comfort to explore and transcend. He experimented with periods of silence, noticing how addicted his mind was to constant stimulation and conversation. At first, the silence felt oppressive, his thoughts racing to fill the void with mental chatter and worry. But gradually, beneath the noise, he discovered a profound peace that had always been there, simply obscured. He realized that most people flee silence because it forces them to confront themselves without distraction. Marcus also practiced voluntary sleep deprivation occasionally, observing how his mind functioned under fatigue. He noticed that tired, his defenses lowered, revealing deeper truths about his thoughts and reactions. It was in these states of deliberate difficulty that he learned the most about who he truly was beneath social masks. One winter, Marcus chose to sleep without extra blankets during the coldest nights, building tolerance to cold. His body adapted remarkably quickly, generating more heat, becoming more resilient to temperature variation. He learned that the body, when challenged consistently, rises to meet almost any demand we place upon it. But more importantly, he discovered that the mind, too, could be trained to thrive in any circumstance. A young mother came to Marcus, exhausted and overwhelmed, feeling trapped by her responsibilities and circumstances. She complained that she had no time for herself, no escape from the constant demands of her children and household. Marcus listened with compassion, then asked her if she had ever considered that her situation was her training ground. Instead of resenting the discomfort and difficulty, what if she saw each challenge as an opportunity to build strength? The mother looked confused at first, but Marcus explained that resistance to reality creates suffering, while acceptance creates peace. He suggested she practice finding moments of deliberate discomfort even within her busy life. When her child cried in the night, instead of resenting the lost sleep, she could see it as training in patience. When tasks felt overwhelming, she could pause, breathe, and recognize her own strength to endure. Marcus taught her that every parent of every generation faced similar challenges, and could either suffer or grow from them. The choice was not in the circumstances, but in how she met them, with resistance or with warrior-like acceptance. Weeks later, the mother returned, transformed not by changed circumstances, but by changed perspective. Her life remained difficult, but she no longer felt victimized by it, she felt strengthened through it. She thanked Marcus for teaching her that the obstacle was not in her way, it was the way itself. As Marcus's reputation grew, some critics emerged, arguing that his teachings were unnecessarily harsh and ascetic. They claimed that life was hard enough without adding voluntary suffering, that comfort should be embraced when available. Marcus didn't argue, but simply asked them to observe who remained calm when real hardship arrived. He pointed out that those who had never trained in discomfort collapsed at the first sign of difficulty. Meanwhile, those who had voluntarily practiced hardship faced genuine crisis with remarkable equanimity. Marcus explained that he wasn't advocating constant misery, but periodic practice to build resilience as insurance. Just as a warrior trains in peacetime for battles that may come, we must train in comfort for hardships ahead. One of his students asked how to know when one was pushing too hard versus not hard enough. Marcus smiled and explained that the practice should challenge but not destroy, stretch but not break. The goal was not to punish oneself, but to discover that one's true limits were far beyond imagined boundaries. He taught them to distinguish between the voice of genuine danger and the voice of mere discomfort seeking escape. The discomfort voice was loud and dramatic, while true danger spoke with calm clarity when genuinely needed. Marcus also emphasized the importance of rest and recovery between challenges, just as muscles need rest to grow stronger. The practice was not about constant punishment, but about strategic discomfort followed by genuine appreciation of comfort. During a particularly harsh winter, Rome faced food shortages, and many wealthy citizens panicked. They had grown so accustomed to abundance that even slight scarcity felt like catastrophic deprivation. But Marcus and his students, who regularly practiced fasting, found the situation merely uncomfortable, not devastating. They had trained for exactly this, their minds prepared to accept scarcity without panic or despair. Moreover, they found opportunities to help others, their own resilience allowing them to serve those who struggled. One wealthy man, having gorged himself for decades, fell into deep depression over a few missed meals. Marcus visited him, explaining gently that his suffering came not from hunger but from attachment to constant satiation. He invited the man to see the shortage as a gift and opportunity to finally appreciate what he had taken for granted. Slowly, the man began to understand, his perspective shifting from victim to student, his crisis becoming his teacher. As spring arrived and abundance returned, Marcus noticed something interesting among the population. Those who had panicked during shortage immediately forgot the lesson, returning to taking everything for granted. But those who had used the difficulty as practice emerged stronger, more grateful, more resilient than before. Marcus realized that hardship itself teaches nothing, only our relationship to hardship determines whether we learn and grow. He taught that voluntary discomfort was practicing the relationship, choosing growth before life forced the lesson. Years passed, and Marcus continued his practices, each one revealing new layers of understanding about comfort and strength. He noticed that modern luxuries, while pleasant, created new forms of weakness and dependency. People who could not sleep without perfect conditions, eat without specific foods, or function without constant entertainment. He saw that what appeared as advancement often masked a kind of devolution, a softening that weakened rather than freed. Marcus taught that true freedom meant needing nothing external, being complete within regardless of circumstances. This didn't mean rejecting comfort when available, but never becoming enslaved to it, never dependent upon it. He compared it to a bird that enjoys a cage when the door is open, but would die if the door were locked. True strength meant being able to enjoy abundance without attachment, to rest in comfort without dependency. One day, a young man asked Marcus if he ever regretted his practices, if he missed the easy path his friends had taken. Marcus smiled and asked if a sculptor regrets striking the chisel, if the pain of creation diminishes the joy of the finished work. He explained that his practices were not separate from his life, they were the very process of sculpting himself. Every cold bath, every fast, every voluntary hardship was a chisel strike, gradually revealing the person he was meant to become. The young man understood then that Marcus wasn't suffering, he was creating, practicing the art of becoming. As Marcus grew older, his practices became less about physical discomfort and more about mental and emotional challenges. He practiced sitting with difficult emotions without seeking distraction, allowing sadness, fear, or anger to arise and pass. He discovered that emotional discomfort could be approached the same way as physical, with acceptance rather than resistance. When grief came, he didn't flee into activity or drink, but sat with it, learning its texture and depth. When anger arose, he didn't suppress or express it immediately, but observed it like a scientist studying a phenomenon. He found that emotions, like physical sensations, lost their power when met with curiosity instead of fear. His students marveled at his equanimity, asking how he remained so calm through life's inevitable ups and downs. Marcus reminded them that he had practiced for this training, and small discomforts prepared him for larger ones. Just as a musician practices scales to play symphonies, he practiced discomfort to navigate life's complexity. Near the end of his life, Marcus faced his final teacher, the discomfort of impending death itself. While others fought against the inevitable, clinging desperately to what was slipping away, Marcus remained curious and present. He had trained for this too. Every practice of letting go had been preparation for the ultimate letting go. On his final day, surrounded by students, Marcus smiled and thanked them for sharing his journey. He told them that he had lived fully not despite his practices, but because of them. Each voluntary discomfort had sharpened his appreciation, deepened his presence, strengthened his capacity to love and serve. He urged them to continue the practice, not as obligation but as gift to themselves and the world. With his last breath, Marcus demonstrated his final teaching, accepting the ultimate discomfort with grace and courage. His legacy lived on through generations who understood that comfort, while pleasant, was never the goal. The goal was strength, resilience, freedom, qualities forged only in the fire of deliberate discomfort. The ancient Stoics understood a truth we often forget in our modern pursuit of constant comfort, that a life of uninterrupted ease produces not happiness, but fragility. By deliberately practicing discomfort, through cold exposure, fasting, simplicity, or any voluntary hardship, we build the resilience that allows us to truly enjoy life's abundance without becoming enslaved to it.